Okay. So thank you everyone. First of all, for choosing HarshaTrainings as your preferred training partner. Now, I hope all of you have enrolled into the training program. If not, you can still reach out to us, and you can reach to us on this number and get yourself enrolled in the training program to continue with this entire training journey with us. Now, for all those who have already enrolled in the training program, thank you very much. And we hope to help you with your training requirements as and when needed. Okay? So, with respect to our first class, like what is it that we should start today? So, like we discussed during our demo series as well, we want to keep our training programs something that is relevant for the people of IT plus non-IT as well. Okay. So today what we will do is we will look at some of the commonly used terms in the IT industry. Okay. So this will ensure that people who are actually part of non-IT, they actually understand what these terms are. Plus, people who are already who are part of IT industry, they will this will serve as a revision for them. Plus, this may add some of the terms that are specific to business analysts that you may not have heard of, or maybe heard of, but never actually got a chance to know their meaning. Okay. So, and the second aspect to it is that all these terms that we are going to look today, these terms is what will be serving as our base in the upcoming classes as well. Plus, these terms will be what we are going to use in our day-to-day life as business analyst as well. Okay, one of the reasons why anyone would want to hire you, or how anyone would evaluate your knowledge during an interview, is not by how you are answering the question. That is obviously expected, that if I ask you something, you are going to give me an answer. If you don't give answer, probably you don't know the subject. But when you are giving answers, what kind of terms are you using? That actually helps assess an interviewer whether you are truly working as a business analyst or not. Okay, so usage of the right terms is extremely important when it comes to business analyst. You use the right set of words while giving responses, and people will surely believe that you have been working as a BA. Okay, so let's get started. So the first term, that is statement of work. Okay. What is statement of work? Now, statement of work is actually often abbreviated as SOW. So many a times when you hear people talking about, do we have SOW signed, okay, or do we have SOW set up? So basically what they're indicating is about statement of work. Now it's an agreement between the customer and the organization that actually helps set the rules for the work that needs to be performed. Okay. So suppose client wants me to build a software. Okay. So our client has come up to me with a request for e-commerce software. Now I am the one from the IT side who has the appropriate experience and can definitely help my client to build that software. But how do we tell each other, or how do we keep each other accountable for the work, like what type of work to be performed, when the work should be performed? So the statement of work helps in there. Okay, similar to how when you go and rent a place, you and your landlord will create a rental agreement. Okay, that so and so person is giving me this much of security deposit, plus whenever you leave the premises we'll do an inspection to ensure everything is in place. If there's any misfit, we will deduct something from your security deposit. So that kind of agreement. So any time whenever two parties are involved, it is always better to have an agreement which will hold both of them liable to what they have committed. Okay, so that is where the SOW comes into picture. Now this SOW does not seem like a BA will be doing it. So as a BA, will I be helping my organization to sign SOW? No. But what will happen is SOW will help govern what type of work we do. Okay, whether it is part of the rules or statements that we agreed upon or not. The next important thing is scope. Okay, so before we actually start any of our work in IT industry, what is more important to understand is what are my boundaries going to be. Okay, so when if you play any kind of sports, okay, whether it is swimming, cycling, cricket, football, you pick any sports. Okay, what happens is you create a boundary first. Okay, that this is the boundary within which the players will have to perform. Similarly, in IT industry also, when you have to build a software, we must create a definition of boundaries, limitations, or more popularly we call it as scope. Okay, what is going to be the scope of my project? Again, getting back to our e-commerce application, suppose if I tell you that e-commerce application is going to have below capabilities, like it will allow users to register on the software, it will allow users to log into the software, it will allow users to search for a product, then view information related to a product, things like what's the description, warranty, and other related things. Now if you really like the product and the pricing for it, you can add to cart feature and provide address and place order. Okay, so what I said is my application will allow you to do everything except one thing which I did not include over here, and that is payment. Okay, I'm talking about the basic software. Now you can definitely have a lot of add-ons and a good features on top of it, but I am just considering the basic features which will help us place an order. Okay. Now I did not write some of the features like online payment. I did not write features like image search. I have mentioned it will be text search. Okay. I did not mention features like I'll have a wish list. If I don't want to buy, maybe I'll store it in the wish list. So what it means is if I'm not specifying anything, okay, then that is not part of my scope. Okay, and when we come to our requirement documentations, we will understand in detail. Again, we'll revisit this topic to understand how do we capture what are in scope and what is out of scope. Okay, so scope is setting boundaries for the software that we are going to create. For that boundary, we need to consider that every feature that falls into the boundary will be called in scope. Everything or every feature that falls outside of the boundary will be called out of scope. Okay, and that helps us actually build the appropriate software for the client itself. Okay, so that client and I, we both are in agreement that what is it that we are going to build. Okay, so that is where scope becomes critical. Without scope, we will not be able to build an appropriate software. Okay, if you don't define scope for your projects, for the software you want to build, then you will get into endless loop. Okay, your project will be never considered as complete. Then the next one we have is a change request or a change in requirement. Okay. Now, this change request or change in requirement basically captures two things. Okay, there's a minor difference. So, a change requirement means I have an existing product and maybe I want to add more features, or maybe from the existing product I want to remove certain feature. So again, getting back to over here, suppose I have this basic product over here. Now what I want to do is, since people are really liking my product, they are happy placing order, but they are not happy with respect to one part, that is doing payments. Okay, because I have not provided them payment option, so every time they have to work on cash on delivery. So now I want to change requirement to add this online payment as part of my software. Okay, so that is called change requirement. It is often abbreviated as CR. Okay, that reflects, and this usually change requirement or CR is, you can say, created, if not created, is initiated by the client. Okay, so as the IT company, I'm not going to go ahead by myself and say that I'll add online payment feature also to the software. Remember, we are working for a client. The client owns the software. So if client wants some changes, we will do it. We are not going to do things from our side without even asking them. Okay, so maybe a client will have access to the tool which tracks CR. Okay, or maybe client will tell us through emails or through meetings that, hey, I want this particular change in the software. Okay, so for that change, then we will go ahead and create a request in our software, that is CR. Now similarly, CR could also mean, a change requirement could also mean the other part, that is change request. That means maybe my team is working on something, and while they are working on building that software, now client comes up and asks for some changes. Okay, now what is that? So consider I'm working on online payments. Okay, now client told initially that let's do the online payment, and in the online payment option we will give our user options of credit card, net banking, and UPI. Okay, now while my team was working on it, so as a BA, I worked with the client, got the requirements in detail, documented it, gave it to my team. Now, when my team is working on the requirement, that is when they're writing code for it, at that point in time, now client comes up and says that, do one thing, let's remove UPI. Okay, so they come up and they say that now my new requirement will be this one. Let's remove UPI from it. Let's do only credit card and net banking. And automatically what happens is this becomes my old requirement then. So that part is called as change request. That while my team is already working in the development, they come up and ask for a change. Okay. Now, so far for these three terms that we have covered, do you guys have any questions? Okay, go ahead, Nagarjun. Sorry, I didn't understand from that word that you typed. What variation? Oh, yeah, you can. Like I said, in the normal English, you have different ways of addressing things. But what we are trying to do over here is call it in the technical terms, so that when you go out there, use some of these terms, people are actually more likely to recognize you as a business analyst, rather than if you use the normal English, people get an impression that okay, even someone in IT industry, like let's say a developer, even a developer is aware of what processes are there. Does that mean a developer is a BA? Or even a tester knows what processes are involved, or a scrum master or project manager also knows. So does that make them BA? Even everyone has fair bit of idea from the IT industry on how things work. But that is that the difference between a BA and the other people comes in with respect to the terms, on what kind of terms or language they speak in. Okay. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, you can call it variation, but it will be more effective in the interviews if you use the word, like suppose a change request comes in. Okay, so we'll get back to the next terms. Then now the next in line is elicitation. Okay, so what is elicitation? Elicitation is basically uh, any technique or method that can be used to get more knowledge from the people. Now, the knowledge could be extracted in the form of emotions, facts, or opinion. Okay, so the part of this training program would be to go through such elicitation, different elicitation techniques, which helps us helps us gather requirements. Okay, so elicitation could be use of any methods that actually helps us get more information. Now, what is elicitation? If I in order to explain you, if I just have to give you a normal example from day to day life. Now, suppose if I tell you that go ahead and get me a pair of clothes. Okay. Now, if I give you this probably request, get me a pair of clothes. So maybe what will happen is chances are that you will go out without asking anything and then bring me something. Maybe let's say that you bring me back a jeans and t-shirt. Okay. Now probably this is not what I expected. Maybe I was looking for more like trouser and t-shirt. Sorry, shirt, let's say. But instead, what you brought me, jeans and t-shirt. Why? Because you did not ask me anything. Okay. Most of the time, our requirements also start like this. They start with the goal where I want to go. Okay. That means I want to buy a pair of clothes. But what kind of clothes? What is the color of the cloth? Okay. So that is where the elicitation techniques actually help us. So we have different techniques, like for example, interview. what happens in interview technique is you ask the other person a set of relevant questions. What is that relevant questions? Now, when someone is asking me to get a pair of clothes, maybe first what I need to ask them is, what kind of clothes do you want? Okay, maybe top wear or bottom wear or both. Okay. Now, once I get to know their category, that maybe they are looking for only top wear or maybe they are looking for only bottom wears, then maybe what kind of fabric, maybe what is the price range you are looking for. Maybe everyone will have some budget. So, what is your budget within which you want to buy the product? Then maybe next could be what color combination are you looking for? Any specific designs in your mind? Now, in interview, what I did is I simply asked you a set of relevant questions to what you told me. Then maybe what will happen is if I get answer to all these questions, probably I'll get a more meaningful answer at the end. And this answer could look like maybe I want a trouser, okay? The fabric can be, let's say, cotton within price range of 2000 rupees, and let's say get me a black trouser. Similarly, maybe I can say shirt, again I put cotton, and let's say get me a shirt within 1500 rupees, and probably I'll want a purple shirt. Now compare these with this first assumption that we had. Okay, we heard a statement. We didn't ask anything. We didn't try to get to the actual point, and we simply went out and brought something to our customer, jeans and t-shirt. And maybe customer never wanted jeans and t-shirt. Okay. Now compare that with this particular case. Okay. So business analyst job most of the time, okay, is about getting to this stage, the one that I have highlighted, right from these kind of statements to what is the need of the customer, to actually asking relevant questions to the customer to get to a stage where we have exactly what is needed. Okay, so going from this vague statement, or I would say the goal or the objective statement, to the exact requirements, okay, is what is done by the business analyst, and that is where the elicitation techniques will help you get there. Okay, now this may be a very simple example, but that is more to explain the elicitation meaning. Okay, when we go to actual elicitation work or case studies, we will take up examples of the software to be built, but I hope the meaning of the word elicitation is clear. Now the next in line is business rules. Yes, what is business rules? So it is basically, you could mark it as policies, procedures, or even guidelines that actually tells us how a business operation should be performed. Okay? Any kind of requirements that we write is not complete without business rules. Okay, so a very simple example of business rule could be, let's say I'm asking my users to register on the website using mobile number. Okay? I'm asking my users to register on the e-commerce application using mobile number. Now, certainly there are some criteria that can be placed around mobile number as well. For example, mobile number should not be less than 10 digits. At least as of now, that's what we see in India, that mobile number cannot be less than 10 digits and mobile number cannot be greater than 10 digits. Okay, it has to be exactly 10 digits only. Now from this statement, I get my second criteria. Okay, and what is the second criteria? That it should be digits and not alphabets. So if someone is trying to enter their mobile number, it should be only digits, or I would say it is only numbers. No alphabet should be there. If someone tries to enter any alphabet like A, B, C, D, that means they are giving me a wrong mobile number. Okay, they cannot give me, like, in a mobile number should be numeric or numbers only. So 10, I want specifically 10 numbers. Okay, now these criteria around a specific usage of a software is what is called as business rules. So that's why we are having that definition of policies, procedures, or even guidelines that decide or govern how the business operation is performed. Okay, so registering on the e-commerce application using mobile number, that's an operation I want to perform. What are the rules surrounding it? That my mobile number should be numbers only. It cannot be greater than 10 digits. It cannot be less than 10 digits. It has to be exactly 10 digits. Okay. So whenever we write down our requirements, we always ensure that we write requirements in detail, and whatever requirements we are writing, we cover any specific business rules around those requirements as well, so that everyone is clear with respect to how the operations must be performed. Okay. So we'll cover two more, that is environment, region, and estimation, and then I'll take a pause for the questions. Okay. So the next one is the environments or regions. Now what is that environment or region? That is to support parallel development. This is to support parallel development. Now, what is meant by parallel development? I'll just explain. Now, suppose I have a product, or I have a software in place. Okay. Now, whenever I have to make any changes in that software, I don't want to impact my existing users or existing customers. Suppose I want to create a new feature in WhatsApp. Okay. Assume that as of now in WhatsApp, it is only allowing you to do text messages. No video calling, no audio calling is there. Now I'm introducing video calling or audio calling feature in the WhatsApp. Okay. Now whenever I am introducing new features, it should not impact my existing features, plus it should not prevent my customers from using WhatsApp. So if you notice, WhatsApp has changed so much over years. Okay. But did you ever notice that because WhatsApp is introducing new features, so we are not able to use the WhatsApp? Okay. We most of the time don't even know that WhatsApp has changed unless we start seeing that feature in live. So how that happens in IT industry is through parallel development. So we have something called as the production environment. Okay. So this production environment is where my customers are actually using the software. Okay. Now what we try to do is where the place where my customers are using the software, I'll not touch it. Okay, if you see Amazon, Flipkart, whatever e-commerce applications you access, or for that matter any of the software that you use through the browser, those are all in production environment where the customers are directly interacting with the software. Okay, and impact that nobody wants to impact customers. So what they do is, similar to production, they create an environment called development environment, which is nothing but, let's say, a copy of production environment. And this is where the developers will make the code change. Okay, so anything that the developers do over here will definitely not impact what is happening in production. So you see, because I have the concept of these different environment or regions, so I'm able to develop things on my end, I'm able to test things on my end, and if all looks good, if all looks okay, then eventually I'll go ahead and merge it to production environment. So next we have different environments for QA. QA is where the testing activity takes place. Okay, so what happens is, once the developer have completed their coding, once they have done some testing around it that the code is working as expected, then they merge the code which is in development environment to the QA environment. Okay, now QA environment is where exhaustive testing will take place. Now this is where the in IT industry, testers will come into picture. They will do all kind of different combinations of testing to ensure that software is working as expected without any defects. Now we also have UAT environments as well, and UAT is actually user acceptance testing. So this is where probably my if you want to give a demo to the client, or if you want to allow your client to actually go and check the software or test it, just to give them the confidence on how the software is working. So for that, what will happen is, you will merge your code from QA environment now to UAT environment. And UAT environment, client will usually do the UAT testing. Or maybe if client is not doing the UAT testing, maybe you will have some testers who will do the UAT and then share the results with the client. Okay, and then at the end, or the last one we have is production environment. So if all looks good, if everything is within the expectations, then finally what we do is, we take the changes whatever we did on UAT and merge it with the production. So when you merge the changes in production, again the customers start seeing the new update. So if we come over here, what we defined as scope, let's say I I worked on developing an online payment feature. So the developers have written the code, testers tested it, then we did one round of demo or UAT is done. Finally, what will happen is, we will merge the code that is written for online payment, we will merge that code into production. So now what will happen is, when customers log in, they will now see, they will not just see these options, they will also start seeing one more option of online payment as well. Okay, so that way, because we have these many different environments or regions, so we are doing our work parallelly. Okay, we are not stopping our customer from using the software. So that's the concept of environments and regions. So you'll keep hearing the term that, hey, the code is still in development environment, the code has been moved to QA environment, the code is now in UAT, we are ready to go to production. Okay, so whenever you hear of these terms, probably they are more of an indication to you on what stage we are in. Okay, when the code is in development environment, maybe someone is still coding it. Okay, when it's moved to QA environment, it is ready for testing. When it is moved to UAT environment, it is now ready for a client demo as well. Now, some companies, and again, these are not the entire list of environments, because different companies can have more environments or less environments depending on how they operate. Okay, but more likely we always expect a development, QA, and production. At minimum, these three has to be there. Okay, then the next one is estimations. So what is estimation? Before we get to any work, okay, we must come to an agreement on how much time it is going to do that work. Okay, so estimations are basically the techniques that we use to come to Consensus is basically an agreement to measure the work. Okay, so maybe I'll say, if I ask you that in order to do the online payment feature, in order to add this to my software, how much time it is going to take. Okay, so before even we get to the work, the first part is to get an estimation of the work. How much time maybe BA will take, how much time developer will take, how much time tester will take, if we require any project management efforts over there. Okay, so for all that, how much time it is going to take, and that time is what is going to be my estimations. Okay, so again, the difference would be, you can always say that, if you can give a task to someone and say that, hey, how much time is it going to take, but instead of saying how much time is it going to take, what we try to prefer saying is, what will be the estimation for this work? Can you give me an estimation for the work? Even when client will give you the work, they are more likely to ask you the estimation. In normal words, they are asking you for number of hours that you are going to take. Okay, but how do we put forward the things? What's the estimation going to be? Okay, now, like I said, I'll stop over here for now and see if there are any questions. Okay, so a robust application, Nagarjuna has posted. A robust application is a general statement of end result. Then is it that I ask the time of search result, time latency of each result to be displayed, and the time of search method technique like Elasticsearch or any specific, and how do we access the time frame and budget, how does the to and fro of elicitation happens? Could you please throw some light on it? So Nagarjun, we'll discuss all this, but one step at a time. Okay, I think maybe you have some exposure into IT industry already, so maybe you are thinking a little bit ahead as of now, but don't worry. Now, things like how does elicitation is carried out, how do we start from a basic feature and then come to a stage where we have a more specific requirement. Then once we have these requirements, how do we document these requirements? Okay, so the entire process will be covered right throughout this training program. For starters, okay, or for now, how we go for buffet, we start with the starters, then we slowly switch our pace to maybe something on main course, have eat something, and then go on to desserts. So similarly, we are taking a baby step towards understanding some of the commonly used terms, so that we set our foundations today, and then tomorrow onwards we again develop on top of that foundations. So as we get to learning more things in the upcoming classes, you will get to know the clear picture or the complete picture of how do you identify your client, from there to how do you write your requirements, and then once you have written the requirement, to how do you document it, and then how do you share that document with respect to your team, and once you have done that, to seeing the actual software in line. Okay, Now, I can definitely throw some light on some of the questions that you asked on the time of search result. Okay, time latency of each result to be displayed. Now, some of these aspects are more technical in nature. Okay, now probably if you ask me how much time it should take, I will not have a clear answer for you. I cannot say that I should get a result within 5 seconds. Okay, maybe 5 seconds is also too much. The industry is moving to a standards where I want to see results within seconds. Okay, at max a second. But if you ask anyone how much time exactly they should take, probably no one will have answer. But what everyone is trying to come to a point is that maybe let's agree that it should not take more than a second. Now, is it something that you can define straight away? Maybe when you search for something and if you get a result in 4 seconds, maybe you will get more frustrated that why is it taking so much time. 4 seconds is too much of a time. So maybe we can work on then improving it. Okay, so when we start building a software, maybe you will not focus too much about how much time it is taking. We want to keep it within acceptable limits. But suppose if we build a software where it is taking longer time, then we have to work on refining it so that it can deliver or show results within seconds. From my experience, I'm telling you, most of the time we expect the search results to throw up or come up in minimum of a second. Okay, if it comes up in milliseconds, well and good, customer will be happy, they're seeing results instantaneously. If it takes more than a second, maybe we have some scope or some area to improve. Okay, but for your other parts, on what type of search to be used, how do we get the requirements, we'll cover as we progress through the different topics. Okay, the next few commonly used terms, they are relatively around different people that are involved in our project. So we will cover them first and then we will go to the remaining ones. So for example, stakeholders. Okay, so for now, for starters, or let's understand who stakeholders are, and again we will go in detail when we look at different types of stakeholders like business stakeholders, project stakeholders. But understand what stakeholders now anyone who is directly impacted by the project is usually a stakeholder. Now, but here what we will do is we will restrict our stakeholder definition to business stakeholders. And who is a business stakeholder? A business stakeholder is a person who actually owns the business idea. Okay, so in regular term we call them clients, but going forward during our training program we may be using the word stakeholder. Okay, because in IT industry that's what people will be more likely referring to, that have you informed your stakeholders about the delay in the project? Are the stakeholders aware? Did you get the requirements from stakeholders? Okay, so again, getting back to our basics part, when we go to interview, we want to use these terms rather than the regular usage. You can call client, there is nothing wrong with it, but if you use the word stakeholder, it just adds more weightage. The next is SME, or it stands for subject matter expert. Now it is usually for the person who has very good and deep understanding of a subject. For example, someone who has been uh, working on implementing payment solutions. Maybe you can call them as an SME who knows how to build payment applications. Okay, payment applications could be like Razor Pay and those. that enable you to make or do the online transactions, like whether you want to pay through UPI, credit card. Okay, so any person who has very good and deep understanding of a particular subject, okay, that is usually referred to as the subject matter expert or the SME. Okay, so as a business analyst, suppose eventually you work for so long on the fintech space, suppose you go to financial services or maybe banking domain, and maybe let's say you spend 10 hours over there. Okay, so maybe if you spend 10 hours there, people would start calling you an SME. Okay, that you have lot of understanding by yourself. But initially what happens is we may rely on the SME to give us the knowledge. Sometimes client will tell you to deliver something, you as business analyst know what the client is asking to deliver, but then you require these SMEs in between to guide you on what the expectations of the client are, and whether they are achievable or not, or what the industry trend is looking at. Okay, now sometimes there could be very fine line between SME and consultants. Consultant is more of a designation. Okay, consultant is not a different person altogether, it is more of a designation that, I hired an SME, and I have given that SME a designation of consultant. Okay, now consultant could also be technical architects. It is more of a designation that you have some experience, you have some knowledge, and I want to utilize your knowledge or experience in my project. Okay, but then I don't want to hire you for full time. Okay, I know that maybe next 6 months this project will get over, then I'm not sure even if I get another project after 6 months or not. So maybe I just want to keep you as consultant, okay, so that you can guide me on the terms related to, if you are a technical architect, maybe you will guide me on the technical side. If you are a business expert, maybe you will guide me on the business side, but I'll not keep you for long. So that's why I'm hiring you as a consultant to help me consult on the project matters depending on your area of experience. Okay. The next is technical architect. As a BA, we will be interacting a lot with our development team, testing team, and the technical architects. Okay. Any new requirements that we actually write down, the first point of contact, usually in good organizations, in organizations that follow appropriate processes. So the first step involves reaching out to technical architects to check the feasibility of implementing any changes. Okay, for us it is easy to create a document. Okay, a document does not mean that the software is ready. A document is more like a guide towards what the software should do. But what if, my current technologies doesn't provide that capability? For example, if I tell you that I want to use artificial intelligence for maybe identifying or going through the images and then identify what category each image belongs to. Maybe I want to do that. On paper, I can write it. But do I have the technology that is capable of delivering all these things? Maybe yes, somewhere they are doing research and development, but I don't have a fixed working product as of now. So maybe if you reach out to your tech arcs, or technical architects are often referred to as tech arcs, they may tell you that maybe what you are writing can be implemented maybe 1 or 2 years down the line when we have a good product available, but maybe not as of now. Okay, or something that can be implemented, how we can implement it. Okay, so the how part, how can we implement, is captured in the solution document by the tech arcs. So usually on good organizations, as soon as I write my requirements or I get to know about the requirements that are needed, I'll reach out to tech arcs to check on the feasibility. If something is feasible, maybe work with them to create a solution document. Whatever solution document technical architects create, it then goes as input to development lead. Okay, development lead is actually the person who manages different developers. Okay, so development team will then decide, okay, whom should I give this work to, which developer, or how many developers will be needed. Okay, and developers are the person who are writing the code, so you can call them coders, programmers, or developers. Okay, all these are synonyms. More commonly in IT industry, we love calling developers, but you can certainly use other words as coders and programmers as well. But more likely you'll see everyone calling them developers. Whatever new requirement we have, we also share it with test lead. Okay, test lead or QA lead. Nowadays, earlier the industry trend was to refer to people as testers, test lead. Now the trend is to call them as QA, okay, quality analyst. So QA lead or QA, quality analysts, who are responsible for testing your application thoroughly. Whatever developer is coding, how do I know that their coding is absolutely perfect? There are no defects, no issues as such. So for that we have a QA team, and that QA team is responsible for doing that uh, testing to ensure that my software does not have any problems as such. Now that takes us to the last part, that is defect, bug, or issue. What is that? So whatever problem my testers find in the application is what is called as defect, bug, or issue. So basically, what is that problem? Deviation from the standard or the expected output. Maybe when I use a software, I'm expecting something. So let's say when I enter mobile number, I'm expecting that I should get OTP. Okay, that is the general expectation. Now this is expectations versus what is happening in actual is I enter mobile number and I get message that OTP sent, but I never receive OTP. Okay, maybe there is some problem in the system that it is just displaying the message OTP sent, whereas OTP is actually never triggered or never sent. Okay, so now that is the variation. I was expecting to get OTP on my mobile number, but I did not receive anything. Okay, maybe once or twice it happens, I can assume that it will be a network issue. But if it is happening on a daily basis or on a frequent basis, but then it cannot be a network issue. Maybe there is some problem in the software. So that deviation is what the QA persons, okay, QA or quality analyst, they try to find out what if they can come across any such deviations, and that deviation will be called as your defects or bugs. Once you identify these defects or bugs, then you assign it to developer, that hey, I have found some defect. You give exact details of the defect, and then the developer has to fix it. As a BA, I must be aware of what defects being raised and whether they are truly defects or not. Sometimes you will see that developer and QA are arguing. QA is saying this is a defect, developer is saying this is not a defect. So who decides whether something is a defect or not? That's where the BA comes into picture. A business analyst is actually owning the requirements. Okay, so they must get it clarified whether the observation of a QA person is a defect or not. If it is a defect, the developer will work on fixing it. If it is not a defect, then maybe QA person did not do the testing in the appropriate manner. Okay, So next thing that you'll all hear is defect, bug, or issue. Now a defect could not just be flagged by a QA person, but sometimes when you actually start working in IT industry, you'll realize that not every time QA will find defects. Sometimes defects will be found by the customers when your product is live in production environment. So when customers are actually using the software in production environment, and at that time they are facing issues. So whatever issue they are facing, that could also be lead to a potential defect. Okay, but the simple understanding of a defect is you are expecting something that your software must do, but you are not getting the expected output. Okay, so any deviation from the standard or expected output could lead to a potential defect. I'm using the word potential defect. It does not mean it's a defect. Now there's one more term left, that is change management. Okay, and that is more to do with people into management kind of role, like project managers or product managers or scrum masters. Okay, like whenever we come across a new product, a new software that needs to be developed, or whether an existing software that needs to be developed, then how are we going to manage the entire process so that everything happens synchronously? Like the BA should be doing their work, they're documenting requirements, they're meeting with the clients, in what format they need to document the requirements, plus how are they going to share the requirements with developers. Are they going to upload it to a SharePoint? Are they going to share the document via email? Okay, or is there a common place where they can keep the requirements so that others can access it? How is developer, what all activities developer is going to perform? Like developer will create a design document, will write the code, do the unit testing. Then what will be done by my QA team? Okay. And then how are we going to approach the client? So all managing all these processes, okay, within the SDLC format is what is change management. Okay. So these are some of the commonly used terms. Now I would request you guys to go through these terms again, get yourself familiarized with these terms. Now, if you're already part of IT industry, I would advise you guys to start talking or using with these terms with your peer group. Now, for someone who is not part of the IT industry yet, I would advise you guys to get yourself familiarized with these terms. And when you are talking to people or your colleagues, maybe in your scope, which may not be IT, it may be some non-IT related work. But if possibly, if you can use these terms while talking to your colleagues in your non-IT space as well, then that will help as well. Okay, the important part is we want to get ourselves familiarized with these terms so much that these comes naturally to us, so that we don't have to prepare ourselves specifically for interviews. What we want is these terms come naturally to us, so we are always prepared for interviews. Okay, so get to practice. If you're not able to use these terms in your office space, then ensure that at least during these classes for next 1.5 months or so, that you use these terms only. When you are asking questions, your questions should be using these terms. When you are discussing with each other, whether on WhatsApp or on calls, then also when you're talking to each other, you should be using these terms only. Okay, that way it will come to you as a practice. Now I'll take a pause over here, see if there are any questions from you guys. Okay, I'll take the silence as no questions. So thank you guys for your time. Okay, for those who are yet to enroll, please enroll yourself in the training program. and let's meet tomorrow at the same time. Till then, thank you everyone.